Hello students, in the last lecture we completed the reversible and irreversible process, and next one the first thermodynamic quantity, that is the work. So there are total four important thermodynamic quantities. Let us say number one, work. This is the one of the important thermodynamic quantity. Number two, heat. Number three, internal energy, and number four, enthalpy. These are the four important thermodynamic quantities. So in the last lecture we completed the work. Okay, now in this today's lecture we are going to discuss the heat. Okay, now the second thermodynamic quantity, that is called heat. What is the definition of a heat? It is a mode of transfer of energy which is due to temperature difference. We know heat always flows from a hotter body to a colder body by virtue of what? Temperature difference. Okay. Now the IUPAC convention of that is the sign convention of the heat. Let's suppose this is a system. Okay. Now there are two possibilities. System may absorb the heat or system may release the heat. Okay. Let's suppose if the system is absorbing the heat, that is the heat absorbed by the system from whom? Surroundings. That means surroundings are releasing the heat energy, surroundings are releasing the heat, and system absorbing the heat. When the system absorbing the heat, that is sign positive sign. If the heat released by the system and heat absorbed by the surroundings both are same, that is given as a negative sign. So in the last class I told you, if the energy content increases, that is a positive sign. If the energy content decreases, that is a negative sign. If the system absorbing the heat, that means the energy increases, that's why we are taking the positive. So this is the plus Q when the system absorbing the heat. When the system releases the heat, that is the energy decreases, so this is corresponding to minus Q, that is corresponding to minus. So this is a very important sign convention of heat. Okay, now how to calculate the heat? There are two methods to calculate the heat content. The first one is the first law of thermodynamics, that is called FLOT. According to first law of thermodynamics, the total energy of system and surroundings remains constant. It is also nothing but law of conservation of energy. That is, energy neither can be created nor can be destroyed, but it can be transferred from one form to another form. Okay, now in the next class we will discuss the detail regarding the first law of thermodynamics. At present just we are using this expression, that is called delta U is equal to Q plus W, where delta U will be the change in the internal energy and Q will be the heat and W will be the work. Suppose if the delta U value and the W value both are known, then we can find the Q value. We can find the Q value from where? First law of thermodynamics. What is the expression for the first law of thermodynamics? Delta U is equal to Q plus W. This is very very important. Once again I am repeating. What is the first law of thermodynamics? Delta U is equal to Q plus W. Q plus what? W. Okay. Now the second method, from the heat capacity process. By knowing the heat capacity of a process. What is the meaning of a heat capacity? It is represented by letter C. It is the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of a substance by 1 degree Celsius or 1 Kelvin. Now, the amount of heat energy required to raise the temperature of a substance by 1 degree Celsius or 1 Kelvin temperature. Let's suppose I have a substance at 25 degrees Celsius. Now I want to increase the temperature of a substance by 1 degree Celsius. I want to increase the temperature of a substance by 1 degree Celsius. That means initially the substance is at 25 degrees Celsius. Now I am raising the temperature by 1 degree centigrade. Then how much of heat I have to supply? That is called heat capacity. That is called what? Heat capacity. Heat capacity C equal to Q, that is the amount of heat supplied, divided by change in the temperature. The amount of heat supplied divided by what? Change in the temperature. Now what are the units for the heat capacity? The units for the heat will be joule, okay, and the denominator, the change in temperature may be Kelvin or degree Celsius. As okay, you can take joule per Kelvin or joule per degree Celsius. Okay, now this is a extensive property, heat capacity. Okay, that is a mass dependent property. Number one, it is a state function. Number two, that means it depends upon the initial state and final state of the system irrespective of the path of the transformation. Okay, there are three different types of heat capacities. How many types of heat capacities? Three. What are those? Number one, total heat capacity. Total heat capacity, it is the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 degree centigrade of a whole substance. Once again, it is the temperature required to raise the temperature of a whole substance, total substance by 1 degree Celsius temperature. Are you getting my point? Let's suppose I have 100 grams of a substance. Let's suppose 100 grams of a substance I have. So how much of heat required to raise the temperature of 100 grams of a substance by 1 degree Celsius temperature is called total heat capacity, which is referred as a CT. That is the total heat capacity, that will be equal to dq upon dt. dq upon dt. Okay, dq upon dt. From here, dq is equal to ct into dt. Are you getting my point? The units here joule per Kelvin. The units are here joule per Kelvin. Okay. The next one will be the molar heat capacity. The name is itself indicating that we have to consider 1 mole of a substance. That means, let's suppose I have how many moles of a substance? 1 mole of a substance. Now, how much of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 mole of a substance through 1 degree Celsius temperature is called molar heat capacity. Is called molar heat capacity. So here molar heat capacity Cn equal to 1 upon n dq by dt, where n is called number of moles. Where n is called what? Number of moles. So dq will be equal to n Cn dt. Now here the units for the molar heat capacity joule per Kelvin per mole. By seeing the units of the molar heat capacity, which is a joule per Kelvin per mole, we can conclude this is the heat capacity regarding 1 mole of a substance. Are you getting my point? Now the number 3, specific heat capacity. Specific heat capacity, nothing but the heat required to raise the temperature of a 1 gram of a substance by 1 degree Celsius. 1 gram of a substance by 1 degree Celsius temperature, which is equal to specific heat S is equal to 1 by m into dq by dt. From here, dq is equal to ms dt. This is a very important formula, ms dt. Here the units for the specific heat capacity joule per Kelvin per gram. Are you getting my point? If the units for the heat capacity joule per Kelvin per gram, that is called specific heat capacity. If the units of a heat capacity are joule per Kelvin, that will be total heat capacity. If the units for the heat capacity joule per Kelvin per mole, that is corresponding to molar heat capacity. Are you getting my point? Now here dq will be equal to what? Total heat capacity into dt n Cn dt or ms dt. Okay. Now to calculate the total heat, we have to integrate on both sides. Integrating the q on both sides. So integral dq, integral ct dt, integral Cn dn dt, integral ms dt. The limits ranges from T1 to T2. The limits are ranging from T1 Kelvin to T2 Kelvin. Okay. Integral dq nothing but q. Are you getting my point? So this is the expression to calculate the heat of the system. Are you getting my point? Now here there are two different types of heat capacities here. Heat capacity is a function of temperature, one case, and it is a independent of the temperature. Okay, there are two cases we have to discuss here. Heat capacity independent on temperature, heat capacity depend on the temperature. So here the first case we are discussing, heat capacity is assumed to be independent on the temperature. Heat capacity is assumed to be independent on the temperature. Okay. Now heat capacity, when it is assumed to be independent on temperature, from here q is equal to take the total heat capacity as a constant outside, and you will have integral dt. The limits ranges from T1 to T2. Are you getting my point? After integration this, you will get the total heat capacity into temperature and upper limit T2, lower limit T1, T2 minus T1, so you will get the delta T. Are you getting my point? This is corresponding to heat capacity which is assumed to be independent on the temperature. Okay, independent on the, this is the total heat capacity into delta T. Here the Cn, N into Cn into delta T, here Ms delta T. All these are related to heat of the system. Are you getting my point? Now here the important thing here, heat capacity of a substance, that may be solids or liquids or gases, real gases, ideal gases, depending upon the temperature. Okay, but the variation of heat capacity with respect to temperature is very less. Okay, and the effect will be almost not considered unless until if it is not mentioned in the question, it is not considered. It is assumed to be what? Independent on the temperature. Once again I am repeating, heat capacity of a substance is considered independent on the temperature, unless otherwise if there is no any information given in the question, we have to assume that heat capacity is independent on the temperature. Okay, let's suppose if the heat capacity is dependent on the temperature, this is the case 2, then heat capacity, that is the total heat capacity or molar heat capacity or specific heat capacity, is a function of what? Temperature. Heat capacity is a function of what? Temperature. Okay, then we have to integrate the function also. The limits are T1 to T2. Are you getting my point? Let's suppose I am taking heat capacity of a substance is given as a, total heat capacity of a substance is given as a plus B T plus C T square. Let's suppose this is a one function of heat capacity of temperature, where A and B are constants. Here what are the A and B? They are constants, and the temperature is changes from T1 to T2. Then how to find the total heat? The total heat Q is equal to what? Integral of Ct dt. The limits are ranging from T1 to T2. What is the Ct value given here? A plus Bt plus Ct square. Okay, now what I have to do? I have to integrate here. Bring the constant K outside, so you will get integral dt. What is the integral dt? T. Okay, so the upper limit will be T2 and lower limit will be T1. That's why I am writing first part T2 minus T1. Now come to here, B constant, bring the constant outside of the integration, so you will get integral T dt, nothing but T square by 2. Okay, so T square by 2 I am taking the common outside. T square, upper limit T2, lower limit T1, so T2 square minus T1 square. Okay, now the next one, integration. Here C constant, bring the C outside. Here integral T square dt, so T square dt nothing but T cube by 3, so bring the 3 outside, so you will get T cube, upper limit T2, lower limit T1, so T2 cube minus T1 cube. Are you getting my point? Now here this will be the total heat of the system. Okay, now here process dependent heat capacity, depending upon the process. Okay, now the total heat capacity Ct will be equal to dq by dt. Okay, heat capacities, in heat capacity we are considering what? Change in the temperature, so that's why this process of dependent of heat capacity, it will be not applicable to physical changes as well as the chemical changes. Do you know, in a physical change, let's suppose solid to liquid or liquid to solid, do you know temperature, pressure are considered to be constant? Yes. Even in a chemical change, let's suppose one reactant give one product. Here also, unless until it is not mentioned in the question, so we have to consider most of the reactions occur in the open container. That's why atmospheric pressure, that is a constant, and temperature is assumed to be constant. So that's why in this physical and chemical process there will be no change in the temperature. Are you getting my point? And also pressure, that means both are constant. But in heat capacity what happens? Temperature must be changes. That's why the process of dependent of heat capacity will not be applicable for physical process, that is a physical change, as well as the chemical change. Are you getting my point? Why? In physical change, chemical change, what happens? Temperature must be constant. But in the heat capacity, what happens? Temperature is changing in the denominator. That's why it is not applicable for physical change as well as chemical change. Now it is valid for whom? Only for state change, especially solid to liquid, solid to solid, liquid to liquid, okay, and also for ideal gas at a state, first state P1 V1 T1, second state P2 V2 C2, that is the state variables. Are you getting my point? Here temperature must be changed. Now there are different types of processes. In the previous class we know isothermal process. In isothermal process, do you know temperature is constant? Yes. When the temperature is constant, change in temperature will be equal to 0. So what is the heat capacity, total heat capacity? dq by dt. But in the denominator, dt value what happens? 0. So anything by 0, nothing but what? Infinity. So what is the heat capacity of isothermal process? Infinity. What is the total heat capacity in the isothermal process? Infinity. That means here in isothermal process, temperature is always constant. Are you getting my point? If you supply the heat to the system, or if you remove the heat from the system, there will be no change in the temperature of the system. This is a very important statement. Isothermal process is that process in which the temperature will be remains constant. If you remove the heat from the system, or if you add the heat to the system, there will be no change in the temperature of the system. That's why the process is said to be isothermal process. Okay. Now one question is there. Find the molar heat capacity of ice which is in equilibrium with water. This is a previous year question. Here ice and water both are equilibrium, where at 0 degrees Celsius or 273 Kelvin. Do you know here temperature is constant? Yes. Again the change in temperature is 0. What is the total heat capacity, molar heat capacity, which we will say? That is called infinity, which is equal to what? Infinity. And the next process is the adiabatic process. It is a process in which no heat exchanges between system and surrounding. Yes or no? No heat exchanges between system and surrounding. That process is called what? Adiabatic process. Now here dq will be equal to what? 0. No heat exchanges. That means q0 or dq equal to 0. That is called adiabatic process. Now in adiabatic process, we know all the three parameters, that is the state variables, pressure, volume, temperature. All these values what happen? Changes. Are you getting my point? Whereas in isothermal process, only pressure, volume changing, because the temperature is what? Constant. But whereas in adiabatic process, both pressure, volume and temperature are variable. Are you getting my point? Now the total heat capacity Ct will be equal to dq by dt, where dq will be 0, numerator will be 0, so that the heat capacity of the adiabatic process is 0. What is the heat capacity of isothermal process? Infinity. Adiabatic process 0. From these two processes we can conclude the heat capacity value ranges from minus infinity to plus infinity. What is the heat capacity value ranges? Minus infinity to plus infinity. Okay. Now the third process, isochoric process, very important process, where the volume is constant. Now I am taking the total heat capacity, I am putting the volume V constant. So here which is equal to what? dq by dt, where volume is constant. Are you getting my point? Now here what I am doing, do you know temperature is a state function? Change in the temperature, delta T dt. Okay. Now it is not depend upon the path. That's why I am taking the V here, dqv. I am not writing dtv because temperature is a state function. Are you getting my point? So it is independent on the path of the transformation. So that's why now q is a path function. So we have to specify the path. That means in which path the process is occurring. Here the path is constant volume. That's why we are writing here dqv. What is the T? Temperature is a state function? Yes. Do you know Q, that is a heat, is a path function? Yes. But QV is a path independent function, because already we defined the path. Already we path defined. What is the path defined? Volume constant path. What is the path defined here? Volume constant path. That's why this is a path independent function that is also called state function. Are you getting my pen? QV, that is the heat content at constant volume, is a state function because path is defined. And one more important thing here, change in the heat, variation of heat at a constant volume with respect to temperature, nothing but the change in internal energy with respect to temperature. Are you getting my point? So this is a very important formula we have to remember. dqv by dt will be equal to du by dt at constant volume. Are you getting my point? From here we can conclude delta qv equal to du. Are you getting my point? That means change in the heat energy, change in the heat at constant volume is nothing but change in internal energy. Change in what? Internal energy. Are you getting my point? Heat changed at constant volume should always equal to change in the internal energy. So this is a very useful definition. What is the change in internal energy? Nothing but change in the heat where? At constant volume. At constant volume. Are you getting my point? The next one, heat at constant volume, that is a QV, is a state function. Just I explained here because we already defined the path. That's why it is a path independent function, otherwise state function. Are you getting my point? Now here it can be explained with the help of the first law of thermodynamics. What is the first law of thermodynamics? Neither heat created nor heat generated. Heat neither can be created nor can be destroyed, but it can be transferred from one form to another form. That is total heat. The total heat of the system and surrounding will be remains constant. Are you getting my point? So here d delta u is equal to q plus w. Otherwise, if you take in the differential form, du equal to dq plus dw, this is what? Flat. First law of thermodynamics. What is the first law of thermodynamics differential form? du equal to dq plus dw. du equal to what? dq plus dw. Okay. Now next here, what is the w? W is equal to, in the last class I told you, minus w is equal to minus integral p dv. Are you getting my point? So here w at a constant volume, work done will be 0. Yes, instead of dw, shall I put the value 0 here? So du will be equal to what? dq. That means change in heat content at a constant volume is nothing but change in internal energy. Change in internal energy. Are you getting my point? Now here Cv equal to dq by dt. Cv, that is the heat capacity at constant volume. Heat capacity at constant volume, Cv equal to dq by dt, which is nothing but the du by dt at constant volume. So this is called what? Molar heat capacity at constant volume. What is this? It is regarding 1 mole. It is regarding 1 mole. What is the molar heat capacity formula? Cv will be equal to du by dt. du by dt at constant volume. Molar heat capacity, do you know it is corresponding to 1 mole of a substance? Okay. And also molar heat capacity is a state function as well as intensive property. We know any extensive property expressed per mole per gram which will become intensive, and also it is path defined. Path defined, that is the, what is the path defined here? Volume constant. Path defined means here volume is constant. Okay. And next to isobaric process. In isobaric process, we know pressure of the process throughout the process is what? Constant. Okay. Now here heat capacity at constant pressure will be equal to dq by dt at constant pressure. In the previous case, what happens? In the previous case, Ct, in the previous case, Ct v equal to dq by dt at constant v I am writing. Now here I am writing constant p. That's why you are taking the Ct at constant p. That means the heat capacity, total heat capacity at constant pressure. Okay. Again the temperature is a state function. It is independent on the path of the transformation. So that's why I am writing the p here. So that's why dqp. dqp nothing but the change in the heat content at constant pressure is nothing but change in enthalpy. What is this? Change in enthalpy. This is very, very, very important. The molar heat capacity at constant pressure, which is nothing but Cp. Molar heat capacity at constant volume Cv. Molar heat capacity at constant pressure Cp, which is equal to change in enthalpy with respect to temperature, keeping the pressure constant. Are you getting my pen? So once again I am writing this formula because this is very important. What is the Cv formula? Cv is equal to du by dt at a constant volume. What is the Cp formula? dH by dt at a constant pressure. So these two very, very important formula. This is very important because in the next thermodynamic property we have to discuss internal energy, we have to discuss enthalpy, where these two values are useful. Okay, now here the next one will be the heat change at constant pressure. Just now I told you should be equal to change in what? Enthalpy. What is the change in enthalpy? Heat exchanging at a constant pressure. Heat exchanging at a constant pressure, change in enthalpy. Heat exchange at a constant volume will be the change in internal energy. Okay. Now here molar heat capacity at a constant pressure Cp. It is also a state function as well as intensive property because we are expressing 1 mole of a substance heat capacity, which is mass independent property, that is called intensive property. Now the next one will be the what is the relation between Cp and Cv. That is a molar heat capacity at constant pressure and molar heat capacity at constant volume. The relation between Cp and Cv for whom? Only for ideal gas. Okay. Now the relation between Cp and Cv, Cp minus Cv is equal to Nr. What is the Cp? Molar heat capacity at constant pressure. What is the Cv? Molar heat capacity at constant volume. The difference between Cp and Cv, that is the Cp minus Cv, will be equal to N into R, where N is called number of moles of ideal gas. What is the N here? Number of moles of ideal gas. Let's suppose I am considering the 1 mole of ideal gas. Then shall I write Cp minus Cv is equal to R, 1 into R, that is nothing but R. Cp minus Cv is equal to R. So this is a very, very useful relation between the Cp and Cv. Okay, what is the Cp? Molar heat capacity at constant pressure. What is the Cv? Molar heat capacity at constant volume, where R is called universal gas constant per mole. Okay, for 1 mole of a ideal gas constant is capital R. Now one more important one, the ratio between the Cp divided by Cv. The ratio between the molar heat capacity at constant pressure divided by constant volume is called Poisson ratio. Is called what? Poisson ratio. The Poisson ratio, it is also known as a gamma Poisson ratio, which is always greater than 1 because Cp value is always greater than Cv. That means numerator is always greater than denominator. That's why the Poisson ratio will be always greater than 1. This is very important. Okay. Now Cp by Cv is equal to gamma. From here shall write Cp is equal to gamma times of the Cv. Now Cp minus Cv is equal to capital R. Instead of Cp shall write gamma Cv minus of Cv is equal to capital R. From here I am taking the common Cv. Cv into gamma minus 1 is equal to capital R, where Cv will be equal to capital R by gamma minus 1 and Cp will be equal to, that is the Cp nothing but gamma times of the Cv. So gamma times of the Cv nothing but R by gamma minus 1. So this is a very important relation between Cp, okay, and Cv. What is the Cp formula? Cp is equal to gamma into capital R by gamma minus 1. What is the Cv? Cv is equal to capital R by gamma minus 1. This is a very important relation. Remember the relation between Cp and Cv. That is the first relation will be Cp minus Cv is equal to N into R. Otherwise for 1 mole 1 into R, that is R. And Cp by Cv ratio gamma, that is equal to Poisson's ratio. Okay. And next one will be the Cv is equal to capital R by gamma minus 1 and Cp will be is equal to gamma R by gamma minus 1. Okay. Now the question is, for 2 moles of a ideal gas, which one is correct? Just now I told you Cp minus Cv is equal to N into R, where N is the number of moles. In the question number of moles is given how much? 2 moles. So Cp minus Cv is equal to 2 times of the R. So Cp minus Cv is equal to 2 times of the R. That will be the option number B, second option. Are you getting my point? This will be the answer. What? Second option. Okay. Now the next one. Here, for a gas having the molar mass capital M having a specific heat capacity at constant pressure will be. The question is specific heat capacity. What is the meaning of a specific heat capacity? Heat capacity corresponding to 1 gram of a substance. Yes. Now what I am doing here, first of all I am taking Cp minus Cv is equal to capital R. Okay. Now I am taking divided by molar mass. So you will get 1 gram of a ideal gas per gram of a ideal gas. So this small Cp and small Cv corresponding to specific heat capacity. They are not the molar heat. When if you take capital R only, that is molar heat capacity. If the capital R divided by molar mass, that will be corresponding to specific heat capacity. That is corresponding to 1 gram of ideal gas. Okay. Now what is the gamma value? Gamma is equal to Cp by Cv. Instead of Cv, shall I write Cp by gamma? Yes. Now do you know the relation between Cp minus Cv? Yes. Cp minus Cv is equal to capital R by M. Instead of Cv, shall I write Cp by gamma? Take the Cp common here. 1 minus 1 by gamma will be equal to R by M. So bring the 1 minus 1 by gamma in the denominator. So you will get Cp will be equal to gamma into R by molar mass into gamma minus 1. So which option is correct? Gamma R by molar mass into gamma minus 1. That means option 1 is the correct one. Option 1 is the correct one. Are you getting my point? Now next, degree of freedom. This is a very important topic. Now what is the meaning of a degree of freedom? Here it is a number of different possible independent motions that a system can have. The system means here, let's suppose consider a ideal gas. Okay, how many different possible independent motions of that system has is nothing but degree of freedom. Okay, there are three different types of degree of freedom. Okay, three different types of independent motions. Independent motions. How many independent motions of system? 3. What are those? Number 1, translational degree of motion, degree of freedom. Next, rotational degree of freedom. Next, vibrational degree of freedom. Are you getting my point? All these are put together degree of freedom. All these three put together what? Degree of freedom. Okay, once again, what is the degree of freedom? That means how many different possible ways a system can has its orientation in the space. That means independent motions. How many different types of independent motions a system can have in the space. Okay, let's suppose I am taking, this is the x-axis and this is the y-axis and this is the z-axis. Okay, now let's suppose this is a one atom is there. Let's suppose it is a monoatomic gas. Let's suppose helium, neon, ideal, noble gas. Now how many different possible motions it can has? It may move in a straight line along the x-axis. This is the one degree of freedom. And second degree of freedom, along the y-axis it can move, or in the third direction, that is along the z-axis, it can also move independently. That means for a monoatomic gas, that is only for one atom, there are how many different independent possible motions are available? 3. Are you getting my point? So maximum number of possible degree of motion, degree of freedoms will be 3 into n, where n is equal to total number of atoms. Let's suppose you have, just now I told you, let's suppose this is only one atom. Okay, if the one atom is there, how many degree of independent freedoms are there here? 3. Let's suppose in a molecule there are how many atoms are there? Let's suppose n atoms are there. So total how many independent freedoms will be, degree of freedom will be present? 3 into n. This is the total number of degree of freedom. Total number of degree of freedom, where here n is corresponding to atomicity. That is nothing but the total number of atoms. That means let's suppose monoatomic is there. Monoatomic. For monoatomic gas, how many number of independent variables will be present? 3, because atomicity is only 1. For in case of diatomic, let's suppose oxygen is there. Okay, Oxygen, how many atoms are there here? 2. So degree of total degree of freedom will be 3 into n, that will be 3 into 2, that will be total how much? 6. Let's suppose you take polyatomic. Let's suppose polyatomic, let's suppose ozone I have. What is the atomicity of ozone? 3. So total 3 into 3, you will get total 9 degree of freedoms. Are you getting my point? Now, out of three different types of degree of freedom, which is translational, rotational, vibrational nothing but oscillational. Okay. Now here, for any substance, especially if you see translational degree of freedom only available 3. That means whether it is monoatomic, whether it is diatomic, whether it is triatomic. If you see monoatomic or diatomic, which can be independently move only along the x-axis, along the y-axis, along the z-axis. That means every substance, whether it may be monoatomic, diatomic, triatomic, irrespective of the atomicity, it has how many translational degree of freedom? 3. It will be constant. Okay. Now come to rotational degree of freedom. How many rotational degree of freedom will be available for monoatomic, diatomic and triatomic? Remember, monoatomic gases, there will be 0 rotational degree of freedom. That means here rotational degree of freedom means, let's suppose here I am considering x-axis, y-axis and z-axis. These are the 3 axes. Okay. Now let's suppose if you consider the monoatomic gas, let's suppose you can take helium noble gas. Let's suppose now this helium noble gas, the degree of rotational degree of freedom will be considered to be what? 0, because it is only one atom. Okay, it is only one atom. So along the 3 axes only it possesses translational degree of modes, but it could not have any rotational. Are you getting my point? Let's suppose this is a one atom. Okay, it is a point mass of atom. Now in case of this point mass of atom, are you getting my point? If any rotation is occurring, but we could not distinguish the rotation because it is completely what? Sphere or spherical. So it is it cannot be distinguishable whether this atom is rotating or not. Are you getting my point? Are you getting my point? It is a single atom. So single atom, if you see, the rotational degree of freedom is not considered, even though it is undergoing rotational, but we could not identify that. Okay, so that's why we are considering 0 in case of whom? Monoatomic gases. Example, all noble gases: helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon, except radon, which is a radioactive. Okay. Now the next one, for diatomic gases and also linear polyatomic gas. What is the meaning of linear and polyatomic? Polyatomic means more than 2 atoms and linear will means straight line. Okay, so CO2 is a linear and polyatomic molecule. Okay, in case of linear polyatomic molecule and also diatomic molecule, there will be only 2 rotational degree of freedom. What is this meaning? Let's suppose you consider carbon dioxide, otherwise you can take the oxygen. Oxygen is a diatomic molecule which is bonded with two double bond between the 2 oxygen atoms. Let's suppose this is the x-axis. Okay, now this is the y-axis and this will be the z-axis. Are you getting my point? Now here 3 axes are there. Already along the one axis oxygen molecule is present. Okay, now how many remaining other axes it has, through which it can rotate? 2 axes. It can rotate along the y-axis or it can rotate along the z-axis. Are you getting my point? So it cannot rotate along the x-axis because it is independent. It is dependent because one oxygen atom it is bonded with another oxygen atom. Are you getting my point? So this oxygen atom, it is fixed and it can be moved to along the x-axis or y-axis. Are you getting my point? Only one axis which is its own axis. According to that axis, along that axis it could not rotate, because once it has to rotate, the relation will be another oxygen is there. Are you getting my point? That means here we have to consider only 2 rotational degree of freedom. For whom? For diatomic as well as linear polyatomic gases, we have to consider only 2 rotational degree of freedom. Here this is a carbon dioxide. Okay, let's suppose Already in this axis the CO2 molecule is present. Apart from these axis, how many other axes are there? Y-axis, it can rotate along the y-axis, otherwise it can rotate along the axis. Are you getting my point? So this is called rotational degree of freedom, which is corresponding to 2 in case of a diatomic or linear polyatomic gases. Now come to what about the non-linear polyatomic gases? What about the non-linear polyatomic gases? Now in case of non-linear polyatomic gases, let's suppose consider ozone. Okay, let's consider sulfur dioxide. Now here there are 3 different types of rotational. Let's suppose along this axis one rotation, along this axis one rotation, and along these two considering one more rotation is positive. Are you getting my point? That means here if it is polyatomic and non-linear, remember polyatomic, non-linear, there will be 3 different mode of rotational degree of freedom. But when it is linear, then it will have only 2 modes of rotational degree of freedom. Are you getting my point? So this is very important. So overall, once again I am repeating. So first of all, translational degree of freedom. How many translational degree of freedom? 3 for all substances irrespective of atomicity. Now come to rotational degree of freedom. In case of monoatomic, 0. In case of diatomic or linear polyatomic, 2. In case of non-linear polyatomic will be 3. Okay, this will be corresponding to rotational degree of freedom. Now the third one will be what is the vibrational degree of freedom? Remember the sum of the 3 rotational, that means number of that is the degree of freedom translational plus degree of freedom rotational plus degree of freedom vibrational will be total equal to, maximum will be equal to 3 into n, because in the first I explained here what is the maximum number of degree of freedoms will be possible here, 3n. Are you getting my point? If you know the translational degree of freedom and rotational degree of freedom, can you find the vibrational degree of rotational freedom? Yes, number of vibrational rotational mode will be equal to 3n minus of number of translational motion degree of freedom plus number of vibrational degree of freedom. So that you will get what? Number of vibrational rotational freedom. Are you getting my point? So here vibrational degree of freedom, it is active. Remember, it is also very important. So the vibrational degree of freedom sometime present and it will be sometime absent. When it will be considered only at high temperature. Unless until if it is not mentioned in the question, we should not consider the vibrational degree of freedom. Only the vibrational degree of freedom is considered at high temperature only. It will be active only at high temperature. Now just now I told you total number of degree of freedom will be 3n, which is equal to sum of the translational degree of freedom plus rotational degree of freedom and vibrational degree of freedom. Out of this I want to calculate the vibrational degree of freedom, which is equal to total number of degree of freedom minus of translational degree of freedom and rotational degree of freedom. Are you getting my point? Now here in case of monoatomic gases, you see only there is a translational degree of freedom. There will be no rotational, there will be no vibrational. Are you getting my point? That's why here there will be no vibrational degree of freedom regarding monoatomic gas. But in case of a diatomic or polyatomic linear, so here total 3n minus of translational degree of freedom 3, and the next one will be the vibration the rotational degree of freedom will be 2, so 3n minus 5. Are you getting my point? This is corresponding to what? Diatomic or linear polyatomic. Are you getting my point? Now in case of polyatomic non-linear, total degree of freedom will be 3n, out of which 3 will be the translational degree of freedom and 3 will be the rotational degree of freedom. If you subtract the 3 plus 3, 6, you will get 3n minus 6, which is nothing but the vibrational degree of freedom. Are you getting my point? Now here there is a tabular form is given regarding the type of degree of freedom, monoatomicity, diatomic and polyatomic gases. Number 1, I am taking the translational. Now what is the, for monoatomic gases, how many number of translational degree of freedom will be 3? Will be 3. For diatomic also 3. For non-linear polyatomic also 3. Now come to rotational. In case of monoatomic, there will be no rotational, no vibrational. Only for monoatomic there will be translational degree of freedom available. Okay. For diatomic 3 translational more and 2 will be rotational, and the remaining vibrational will be 3n minus of 3 plus 2, that will be 5. Okay. Now come to non-linear polyatomic, translational degree of freedom 3 and rotational degree of freedom also 3, and the remaining vibrational degree of freedom, that will be total 3n minus of 3 plus 3 6, so 3n minus 6. Okay. Now if you add the total 3 plus 0 plus 0, that will be 3. Shall I write this is 3n? Shall I write this will be the total 3 into n. Here n is the atomicity, where for monoatomic the atomicity will be equal to what? 1. So that's why I am writing 3 into 1 is equal to 3. But in case of remaining diatomic, 3 plus 2, 3n minus 5. So total value 3n. Here also 3 plus 3 plus 3n minus 6, total value will be 3n. So what will be the maximum number of degree of freedom? 3n. What is the maximum number of degree of freedom? 3n. Okay. Now this is very important note. The vibrational degree of freedom is active only at high temperature. Remember, vibrational degree of freedom we have to consider only at high temperature. Unless otherwise it is mentioned, it should not be considered. That means it should be absent in the molecule. In that case only we have to consider what? Translational degree of freedom and rotational degree of freedom. We should not consider the vibrational degree of freedom. Okay. Unless it is not unless otherwise it is not mentioned, we should not consider. Once it is mentioned in the question, then we have to consider the vibrational degree of freedom. Okay. Now what is the heat capacity at constant volume Cv? Now here we know what is the ideal gas kinetic energy for 1 mole of ideal gas, that will be equal to 3 by 2 RT. 3 by 2 RT. Okay. Now let's suppose it is a 1 mole of a ideal gas. Now the ideal gas total kinetic energy of a 1 mole of ideal gas will be 3 by 2 RT. Okay. This ideal gas kinetic energy is only due to translational. This is also called translational kinetic energy. Now this translational kinetic energy 3 by 2 RT, now this will be completely divided into 3 possible ways. In each possible way, shall I write the RT by 2? That means the translational kinetic energy along the x-axis RT by 2, y-axis RT by 2 and z-axis RT by 2. So total translational kinetic energy will be RT by 2 plus RT by 2 plus RT by 2, that is will be 3 RT by 2, which is the total kinetic energy. This is called law of equipartition energy. Law of equipartition energy. Okay. So for such purpose, what we are doing here, we are taking the total number of translational degree of freedom plus total number of rotational degree of freedom, and they are multiplied with whom? R by 2. Here R by 2, here R by 2. Are you getting my point? R by 2. Okay. And plus number of vibrational degree of freedom into R. This is the formula to calculate the heat capacity at constant volume, that is the Cv. What is the formula? Number of translational degree of freedom plus number of rotational degree of freedom multiplied by whom? R by 2 plus number of vibrational degree of freedom multiplied by R. In this vibrational degree of freedom, we have two types of energies, potential energy as well as kinetic energy. That's why we are taking only R, not R by 2. If you want to take individually, you can take R by 2 kinetic energy plus R by 2 potential energy regarding the vibrational. So overall you will get R by 2 plus R by 2, again you will get what? R. Are you getting my point? Now here, what is the relation between Cp, Cv? Cp equal to Cv plus capital R. Okay. Now from gamma, that is a Poisson's ratio, that is called Cp by Cv. Okay. Now here, once we know the Cv, we can find the Cp. Once we know the Cp and Cv, we can find the gamma Poisson's ratio. Okay. Now we are trying to calculate the Cp, Cv Poisson ratio of the different types of ideal gases. Let's suppose I have monoatomic gas. monoatomic gas, just I told you, only there will be degree of translational degree of freedom will be present, no rotational and no vibrational. So number of rotational degree of freedom, number of vibrational degree of freedom will be what? 0. So here CV will be equal to, put the value here. Here only you have 3. Okay, this will be 0, this will be 0. You will get 3 into R by 2, that will be called 3R by 2. Okay, once CV will be 3R by 2, what is the CP? CP equal to, shall I write CV plus R? CP equal to CV plus R. So 3R by 2 plus R, that will be 5R by 2. So CV value 3R by 2, CP value 5R by 2. The ratio between the CP and CV, that is 5R by 2 by 3R by 2, that will be 5 by 3. That is called Poisson ratio. The 5 by 3 only corresponding to monoatomic gases. Remember, what is the gamma value for monoatomic gases? 5 by 3. Gamma value 5 by 3. Okay. Otherwise, there is a one short formula to calculate the CP, CV and gamma Poisson ratio. Okay. Now, the CV value equal to F into R by 2. What is the F here? Degree of freedom. What is the F here? Degree of freedom. In case of monoatomic, what is the degree of freedom here? 3. So 3 into R by 2. Okay, 3R by 2 plus R by 3R by 2 plus R, 5R by 2 here. If you want to calculate, you can calculate CP-CV relation. And gamma will be equal to CP by CV. Okay, so CP value here, CV value here. If you simplify, you will get to gamma will be equal to 2 by F plus 1. Otherwise, you can calculate for monoatomic. Gamma will be equal to 2 by how many degree of freedom for monoatomic? 3. 2 by 3 plus 1. So gamma will be equal to what? 5 by 3. You can directly use this formula to calculate the gamma value. To calculate what? Gamma value. What is the CV value? F into R by 2. What is the CP value? R into F by 2 plus 1. And what is the gamma value? 2 by F plus 1. 2 by F plus 1. Now come to, in case of diatomic gases. What are the diatomic gases? Otherwise linear polyatomic also, like carbon dioxide, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, fluorine, chlorine, diatomic gases. How many number of degree of translational freedoms? 3. And rotational will be only 2. Okay, are you getting my point? Now here what I am considering, I am neglecting the vibrational degree of freedom. Unless until in the question not mentioned, we should not consider. Okay, now total how many degree of freedom here? 3 plus 2, 5. So CV will be is equal to 3. Here what is the formula here? CV will be equal to F into R by 2. What is the F value? 5. 5 into R by 2. So that is 5R by 2. Once CV 5R by 2, feel CV plus R, 5R by 2 plus R, that will be 7R by 2. Okay, 7R by 2 plus 5R by 2, that will be equal to 7 by 5. This is corresponding to diatomic or linear polyatomic. Are you getting my point? Next to come to non-linear polyatomic gases like sulfur dioxide, ammonia, methane. Okay, now total degree of freedom here. Now 3 will be the translation degree of freedom plus 3 will be the rotational degree of freedom. Here we are not considering again vibrational degree of freedom. So total number of degree of freedom will be 6. So CV will be equal to what? F into R by 2. What is the F here? 6. 6 into R by 2. CV, that will be 3R. CV 3R. CP will be equal to 3R plus R, 4R. So CV 3R. CP 4R. Gamma CP by CV, that will be 4 by 3. Are you getting my point? Now there is a one question here. Calculate the CP, CV and Poisson ratio of O2, ammonia, helium, methane, assuming vibrational degree of freedom is active. Yes. Now here previously we are neglecting the vibrational degree of freedom, but here we have to consider that vibrational degree of freedom. Okay, now in case of helium, only translational degree of freedom, that means total number of degree of freedom will be 3. So CV will be is equal to F into R by 2. So 3R by 2 plus R, that is 5R by 2 CP. So ratio will be 5 by 3. So here monoatomic gas, there is no any effect of vibrational degree of freedom on the CP and CV. Now in case of diatomic gas, what is the degree of translational degree of freedom? 3. Rotational will be 2. Now we have to consider the vibrational degree of freedom. Yes, the value will be total 3n minus of translational degree of freedom 3 and rotational degree of freedom 2. 3n minus 5. What is the n here? Atomicity, that is 2. So 3 into 2, 6. 6 minus 1, 3 into 2, 6, 6 minus 5, that will be 1. So we have to consider one vibrational degree of freedom. So total 3 plus 2 plus 1, that is equal to 6 will be the number of degree of freedom. So here CV will be is equal to F into R by 2, where F is the R. So 6R by 2 will be equal to 6R by 2. Are you getting my point? Here you have 3 plus 2 plus 1, 5. Just wait. Here total value, if you see, here the CV formula, actual CV formula what? Number of translation degree of freedom plus number of rotational degree of freedom into R by 2 plus number of vibrational degree of freedom into what? R. So here number of vibrational degree of freedom will be 1. So R into 1, that will be R. So here 3 by 3 plus 2, that will be the number of degree of freedom, that will be translational and rotational. So here 3 plus 2, 5. 5 into R by 2 plus R. Are you getting my point? So this will be 5R by 2 plus R, that will be 7R by 2. 7R by 2 plus R, that will be 9R by 2. So ratio will be 9 by 7. The ratio will be what? 9 by 7. Are you getting my point? Now here ammonia. Ammonia is a non-linear polyatomic. Okay, number of translational 3, number of rotational degree of freedom 3. Okay, because it is non-linear. If it is linear, we can take 2. If it is non-linear, we can take 3. Now the remaining will be 3n minus of 6. That will be 3n minus 6, where n value will be atomicity. How much? 3 plus 1, 4. 4 3s are 12. 12 minus 6, 6. So 3 translational plus 3 rotational into R by 2 plus here remaining how much? 6. That will be the vibrational degree of freedom into R. That will be 6 into R. Okay. So the CV value 9R and CP value 10R. So gamma will be 10 by 9. Okay. Now come to the methane. Methane is a non-linear polyatomic. So number of degree of freedoms, that is the number of translation degree of freedom 3 and rotational will be 3. So total will be 3n minus 6. N is the atomicity of methane, that is the 4. 3 into 4, 12. 12 minus 6. Are 3 into atomicity here 5, because one carbon is there, 4 hydrogens are there. 3 into 5, that will be 15. 15 minus 6, that will be 9. Okay. So finally the CP value will be 12R, and here CV value 12R, CP value 13R, and the gamma value will be CP by CV 13 by 12. Okay. Now here this is a very important note. When the vibrational degree of freedom is active, that means present, then the gamma, the Poisson ratio value always decreases with the exception of monoatomic gases. Monoatomic gases, we should not consider the vibrational degree of freedom and rotational degree of freedom. Okay. Are you getting my point? That's why if the vibrational degree of freedom is active or inactive, there will be no change in the value of gamma in case of monoatomic gases. But the gamma value changes, that means decreases for diatomic linear or polyatomic non-linear. Gamma value decreases when we consider vibrational degree of freedom. Okay. Let's suppose if you see oxygen, in case of absence of vibrational degree of freedom, the CV value 7 by 5, 1.4. But whereas if we consider the vibrational degree of freedom, that will be 1.28. That means the gamma value, what happens here? Decreases. The gamma value, what happens? Decreases. And one more example, methane I given here. Okay. Now at low temperature, yes. So here we have to import it. Conclusion here. Let's suppose if the temperature will be less than 200 Kelvin, we have to consider translational degree of freedom only. If the temperature will be moderate temperature, that means 200 Kelvin to 5000 Kelvin, both translational and rotational degree of freedom we have to consider. If the temperature is very high, that means greater than 5000 Kelvin, then only we have to consider vibrational degree of freedom along with translational degree of freedom as well as rotational degree of freedom. Are you getting my point? Now here, this is one previous question. Okay, subjective question. Hydrogen gas, CV value 3R by 2. Yes, because it is a diatomic gas. Okay. Are you getting my point? Now here at low temperature, but at moderate temperature 5R by 2, but with very high temperature the CV value will be greater than 5R by 2. What is the reason? Why? Just now I explained in the above note. At low temperature, we have to consider only translational degree of freedom, according to which only 3 degree of freedoms will be present. So 3R by 2. But whereas in the moderate temperature, we have to consider the rotational degree of freedom along with translational degree of freedom. So you will have the CV value 5R by 2. CV value is 5R by 2 when we consider both rotational and translational. But whereas at very high temperature, all the 3 degree of freedom, that is the degree of mode, will be operated. That means here the vibrational degree of freedom is also active because the temperature is very high. That means we have to take the CV value as a greater than 5R by 2, that is the 7R by 2. Are you getting my point? Now one more question here. 5 moles of O2 gases are heated in a closed rigid container. Okay. Calculate the heat required to change its temperature from 27 degrees Celsius to 227 degrees Celsius. Now here, rigid container means closed volume. When the volume is closed, we can say heat content of a system at a constant volume V, QV is equal to NCV dt. NCV delta T or dt. What is the number of moles of a ideal gas is given? 5 moles. What is the CV for diatomic? For oxygen diatomic gas, what is the CV? That is equal to 5R by 2. Are you getting my point? Because 3 translation degree of freedom and 2 rotational degree of freedom. So total number of degree of freedom will be 5. So CV is equal to F into R by 2. That means 5 into R by 2. That is 5R by 2. Okay. Now what is the temperature difference? 227 degrees minus 27 degrees. So that will be overall final answer will be here 5 5s are 25. 25 into here how much? 227 minus 27 will be 200. 200 by 2 means 100. That means 2500 into R. What is the R value? That will be depending upon the units. R value in case of calories 2 calorie per mole per Kelvin. In case of joules 8.314 joule per mole per Kelvin. So for simplicity I am taking the R value as a 2 calorie. That means 5000 calories, nothing but 5 kilocalorie, because 1 kilocalorie will be equal to 1000 calories. 1000.